Great Depression 2.0. Is it already here? I believe it is already here, and we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna give you some stats and show that we are already in a depression. No matter how much Biden and the media try to gaslight us, just like they used to tell us the Hunter Biden laptop wasn't real, and Joe Biden has all his faculties. What are you talking about? He's not losing his mental acuity, and all these other things that they tell us to not be true. The same goes for the terrible economy that we live in. They act like we're not going to the grocery store and making these purchases and putting gas in our cars, and like we can't tell that things are more expensive. And it's been like that since Joe Biden been in office. So we're gonna talk about that. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon. That's where I talk about things that I can't talk about here. All right, so let's talk about this news now. If you feel like the full story about the U.S. economy isn't being told, you're not alone. You might even think the situation is worse than what the administration presents through corporate media. So we're gonna explore several examples showing how the American public is being given only part of the economic picture, while the rest remains hidden. According to some economists, the omitted details suggest that the United States might have been experiencing various levels of economic depression since 2021. Mind you, this is under Joe Biden's leadership, his policy, his regulations, and so forth. With that in mind, let's dive in this. So let's talk about first the consequences long into the future. If the U.S. economy is in the worse shape than officials report, possibly even entering a depression, it might have begun with the COVID-19 pandemic. Panic. Jeffrey Tucker and Peter St. Onge from the Brownstone Institute discussed the likely start of the economic turmoil we've been fearing. We've been feeling, I should say. They say we often hear the pandemic blamed for the outcomes of lockdowns, but it was a man-made decision to shut down the world over a respiratory virus. These lockdowns disrupted all economic data, creating unprecedented fluctuations in every indicator and making before-after comparisons extremely difficult. The repercussions will echo long into the future. High interest rates are a consequence of attempting to slow down the flood of money released in March 2020, when over $6 trillion appeared seemingly out of nowhere and was distributed widely. Even if some traditional assets are rising now, it doesn't mean the economy is healthy. The Brownstone piece highlights persistent inflation as a challenge to the narrative that things are all right. So if things were great, inflation wouldn't be so bad, is basically what they're alluding to. To determine if we are in a recession, we look at real GDP adjusted for inflation, mind you, rather than the nominal GDP. You have to have that adjustment for inflation so you won't get the real picture. 2 consecutive quarters of decline are considered recessionary. If we adjust poorly estimated output numbers with the realistic view of inflation over the past few years, a back of the envelope calculation suggests we never left the recession of March 2020, and things have been worsening gradually, not getting any better. Regardless of what Biden is trying to say, it has not gotten any better. It's only gotten worse. The U.S. already had 2 consecutive quarters of decline in GDP in early 2022, indicating a recession. Remember when that happened? That's when they went and they changed the definition. And you can see these 2 negative quarters on the official line graph, showing how the real GDP recovery seems to be evaporating quickly. I forgot to throw that graph in there. Sorry about that, y'all. Um, However, there's a big difference between GDP and prosperity. GDP measures spending, while prosperity considers how that spending occurs in the economy. Are people prosperous? So here's a clue. Consumers are accumulating credit card debt at record levels with high interest rates to support the current GDP while paying inflated prices. So you're paying more because of inflation, but then you're paying more also because of the higher interest rates. So the GDP is clearly unhealthy, but it's not only the only problematic data. A study by the National Bureau of Economic Research, or NBER, indicates that inflation hasn't been accurately reported by officials since the pandemic began. And I've been saying that these numbers they've been putting out are false. And one graph from that study shows the true inflation rate, including housing costs like mortgage payments, peaked closer to 17% and was still around 7% in late 2023. Next, let's examine more data points. Let's talk about the economic slowdown since 2021. Since 1970, every recession has been preceded by a slowdown in year-over-year industrial production, with one exception shortly after Trump's first election, when the slowdown occurred without a recession. Since 2021, year-over-year U.S. industrial production has been rapidly growing. Retail sales tell a similar story. On the retail sales have struggled to gain traction since 2021, seemingly trending downward. And then we got factory orders follow the same trend. EJ Atoni noted on X that factory orders appear to have increased by 21.1% from January 21 to March 24. But adjusting for inflation reveals only a 1.8% increase, with real orders down 6.9% since their peak in June 2020. You see what happens when you deal with the real when you adjust for inflation? They leave the inflation part out. If the economy were truly booming, as the corporate media and Biden administration claim, the line graph would look much different. Once inflation is factored in, part of the narrative collapses. So if you feel things are worse than reported, you are likely correct. As for the possibility of a U.S. depression, Peter St. Ong summarized his thesis in a recent article. He said, basically, my base case is that we're repeating the 1970s disaster driven by uncontrolled government spending and excessive Fed money printing. What have I been saying? What have I been saying? We have a government spending problem. He goes on to say the official numbers almost match this scenario perfectly. And we'll have to see how things unfold, but the data suggests this direction. And if Peter is right, Americans could face significant trouble ahead. The financial suffering over the past 4 years could be just the beginning. And I've been saying this for the last couple of years now. It's gonna get a lot worse before it gets any better. We haven't even hit the bottom yet. The bottom has not even dropped out yet. So much for Biden's economic recovery, though, and Bidenomics. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Leave your comments down below. Do you think the economy is going to get a lot worse? Like, share, and subscribe. Hit that like button. Like. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace.